Hello, sixth graders. Today is Tuesday, April 14th, 2020. I hope you guys all had a wonderful Easter and that you found a way to spend some time with your families. Mine was very nice. We took advantage of using Zoom and FaceTime so we could get together with grandparents and parents, and everybody could still be together even though we were social distancing, and it was a very nice Easter. So I hope you guys all had a great Easter yourselves. I'm excited to announce that we are actually up to 19 students who have been on KidBlog and who have posted topics for their Learning Fair project. And I don't know if the Learning Fair is going to happen this year, but we're definitely going to try to do the research and to do our research paper, and we'll see where we're at when and if we get back to school, what we can do to continue to have the Learning Fair. But some topics include things like global warming, endangered species, water pollution, air pollution. One student's doing solar energy. Another one's doing the greenhouse effect. We even have a student doing electric cars and their impact on the environment, organic farming, burning of fossil fuels. So we've got a lot of exciting topics that you guys are researching. If you haven't already picked a topic, I would direct you to go back, watch one of my first two videos, and you guys can see the directions there in order to find your research topics. Today I'm going to shift gears though, because back before we ever left school, I told you guys we have two more big things that we're going to do this year. One is we're going to be reading the novel Chomp, and we're going to be doing lit circles, and then the other is the research project. So today I want to talk to you a little bit about the literature circles and the book Chomp. Now, because we're not in school, we're not going to be able to do lit circles, but I think you'll still be able to do a lot of the jobs that I had planned originally that go along with the lit circles. And because we're not in school, a lot of you might not have access to the book Chomp. And in that case, what I would do is I would direct you to find an independent reading book, a book that you're interested in. Hopefully a book you haven't read before, but it could be a book that you're rereading for a second time. But I would ask, find a new book that you guys could do some of these different tasks with. So today, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you right through today's blog post on roytrumbull.blogspot, and we're going to look at these literature circles, what they are, and how you guys could still do some independent reading at home and use the lit circle jobs and post what you're learning to KidBlog. Okay, so here we are at today's lesson. It would be, if we were in school, date 127, kids. Can you guys believe that? And today's the day where I'm going to introduce you guys to those lit circle roles. So if I scroll down, here is the book Chomp by Carl Hiaasen. Now, if you choose to read this book, you certainly can. I would love it if you guys wanted to. You can certainly find this on Amazon or other online bookstores and have it sent right to you. It's a fabulous book, and I'm kind of disappointed that right now we're not all together to read it. But these lit circle jobs you can do with this book, or you could do them with an independent reading book still, because we're going to be posting them up on the KidBlog. So the way that the literature circles work is for each reading, you guys would ultimately all end up having different jobs. So some of you would have the job of summarizer, while other people would be doing the job of character captain. Vocab enricher is another job. The conflict evaluator, the mood and tone analyzer, the illustrator, and this is if we have large groups, and I don't think any groups this year are very large, so I'm not even going to talk about the illustrator. And then the last job is the discussion director. So what basically you guys would be doing is you would do a chapter or two in your book, depending on how long the chapters. If this was Harry Potter, I would do this every chapter. If this was a book like Freak the Mighty, we would be reading 2 chapters. The way that I have it worked out for Chomp was you guys would read chapter 1 and 2, and you would be assigned a job. Okay, so I've included all of the documents right on the blog. So I want to go through and read the different roles. So here are some of the documents that you guys are going to want. The first one here is this overview of roles. So I've given you an overall rule of every single one of the jobs. And every job is something we've worked on this year. So the first job is the discussion director. And here, I'm going to read this to you. It says, your role demands that you identify the important aspects of your assigned text and develop questions for your group to discuss. Focus on the major themes or the big ideas in the text and write level 1, 2, and 3 questions. What interests you will most likely interest those in your group. You'll be responsible for facilitating or leading your group discussions. Level 1 questions have one answer, and they can be found right in the text. Level 2 questions, you guys know, you have multiple answers, and they place you, the reader, right into the book and ask what you would do. And level 3 questions have multiple answers, and they take some aspect of the text and ask you to apply it to your own lives. Now, this is the one job that I think it would be very challenging for you to do with an independent reading book. If you were to post questions on KidBlog about your book, nobody, except for those that have read your book, would be able to answer those questions. So since we're doing this at home, the discussion director would be a job I would probably direct you to avoid. But job number 2 is the summarizer. This is a job you could all do using your independent reading book and using KidBlog. Summarizer, your role requires you to prepare a summary of the reading when you write a summary, you need to focus on the most important details that push the story forward. You should create a bulleted list of plot events as you read, and then draft your summary based on your notes. And you guys had a lot of practice with this in the last book. So here's your remember. A summary has 3 parts. An introduction, has the details, only the most important details, and then a reflection, which is your thoughts or your opinions on the reading. Every one of you could do the summarizer as one of the roles. Job number 3 is the character captain. We've spent a lot of time this year analyzing characters. So this is what your job is if you choose to do the character captain. Your job asks you to analyze our main characters, including the protagonist, antagonist, and any other characters you feel are important to the story. You write down specific details about what the characters do, say, feel, or think, and then explain what you learned about the character based on those things. And here's your remember. Remember, we learn about characters based on their thoughts, their words, their feelings, their choices, their actions, a physical description, and what other people say about them. With your independent reading book, every single one of you could create a blog post and talk about your characters. The 4th job that I had planned is the vocabulary enricher. And this is where your job requires that you watch out for new and unfamiliar or challenging words that are important to learn. These might also be words that are fun, interesting, or just used in unusual ways. You will be responsible for engaging your group members in a discussion about these words and teaching them about what they mean. Okay? So remember, you're going to focus on words that are new. Focus on finding words that are challenging. Focus on words that you don't know, or focus simply on words that will help you understand the text. I'll be showing you the graphic organizers that go with each one of these jobs and talking about them in more depth. Now, job number 5 is the conflict evaluator. We spent a lot of time this year talking about the conflicts in the texts. If you choose to work on this job, it says your role asks you to evaluate the situations and events of the reading and identify the types of conflicts that occur. You will need to be able to identify what type of conflicts you see and explain to your audience in detail why you think it is a conflict. Now, remember, there are 4 types of conflict. Man versus self, that is where the character struggles with their thoughts and feelings about themselves. Man versus man, this conflict is where the character has a struggle with another character. Man versus nature, this is where the character has a struggle with some aspect of nature, including weather, animals, disease, etc. And then the last conflict is man versus society, where the character has a struggle with the laws or the beliefs of a group. The last job that you might choose to do is the mood and tone analyzer. Well, we've not done a ton with mood and tone. We have touched on this, especially when we worked on those summaries and we were looking for topic sentences and reflective statements. The mood and tone analyzer, this would be your job. Your job is to analyze the mood and the tone of the reading. Focus on identifying the feeling created by the work of literature. The mood is reader-centered and is influenced by the setting, while the tone is writer-centered and expresses the attitudes the writer takes in the texts. Be sure to use your notes to help you. Now, you guys have notes from Unit 1 with information all about mood and tone. But right here on this, I wrote down a reminder to you guys about some mood and tone words. So here are some mood words to help you along. Things like cheerful, hopeful, joyful, optimistic, calm, powerful, mysterious, intense, sad, terrifying, horrific, pessimistic. Others like lighthearted and scary. These are all words that describe the mood. Tone words, here are some examples for you guys, are words like sincere and honest, critical, encouraging, scornful, playful, proud, condescending, hurt, nervous, or disappointed. That gives you an overview of the roles. Now on the blog, I've also included the graphic organizers that would go with each. You can see this one is for the discussion director. And here, again, you have a description of the role and you have a place to do your work. This is where you could write your 5 to 7 questions. Now again, I would avoid the discussion director unless, of course, we find that many people are actually reading the book Chomp. It would be a good place for you guys to post your questions and other people to respond. And what I'm going to ask you guys to do is once you start your independent reading book, I'm going to ask that in your blog post you include the title of your book so we all can know what book you're reading. Here's the graphic organizer for the summarizer. Again, you can see at the top as you're reading your independent reading book, you have bullets where you could write down some important information. And at the bottom, it says, write your summary here. So you guys could write your 5 to 6, 7 sentence summary down here at the bottom. Again, you could print these right at home, so you could do this with handwriting, and then you could go on to KidBlog and you could type them in, or you could just use these as a guide and do all of your work right in KidBlog. Here's the graphic organizer for character Captain. On this graphic organizer, what I've done is I've put in the left column the name of the character. So you would put down whoever your character is, their name. Then in the middle column, you would write down specifically right out of the book, what did the character do? What did they say? What did they think? What did they feel? Or what did they choose? Be specific here. And then on the left, this is based off of this action or based off of what they said or what they thought. This is what did you learn about the character? You would write that in this last column. Now, a character could occur on the sheet more than once. One of the main characters in the book, Chomp, is a character by the name of Wahoo. So his name could appear on this graphic organizer 2 or 3 times because he might do something and then you could make an inference about something that you learned about him. He might say something or he might choose something, and based off these things, you would be able to make several different inferences about those characters. The vocabulary enricher, again, is one that it might be challenging for you to do based on your independent reading book and to share it up into KidBlog, but I'm going to tell you about this graphic organizer anyway. Again, we've got 3 columns. In the left-hand column, you would write down the word and what page you found it on. As you can see, this would be a whole lot easier if we were all reading the same book because we could all go to that page and look at that word. The middle column asks you to define the word based on the context. So basically, this is a column where you write down, what do you think the word means? Before you ever look up the word, just take a guess. What do you think the word means? And then the last column over here is where you would go to a dictionary, an online dictionary. You could use Word Central like I've taught you. And you actually look up the word and you write down the definition. Now this graphic organizer has a second part. If you remember from Harry Potter, we did something called a Frere model. And this graphic organizer has a mini Frere model where you put the word in the middle, you would put down the sentence from the text, you would write down its definition, and then on the bottom left, here where you could put some synonyms and examples, and on the bottom right, some antonyms and opposites. And of course, with Frere models, it's always important to include a picture. So with this mini Frere model, you could include a picture in the middle. You could really include a picture wherever you wanted to. You also could make copies of these or print these off. You could do the work. Then you could take a picture and put the picture of your work on the Kid Blog as well so people could see the work that you did. Now, the next job is your conflict evaluator. And again, at the top of every single one of these, you have an overview of the role to remind you of what this job is. So what we have here, again, which we have 3 columns. On the left, you would write down the type of conflict. For example, I'm going to use Harry Potter to show you how I would fill this out, and using Harry Potter as an example. With this first column, it would say man versus, and I would choose, I'm going to do a man versus man conflict, so I'd write down man versus man. Now, I would think about that book and I would say, okay, Harry versus Voldemort. That's who the conflict is. So my example is Harry versus Voldemort. And then in my last column, I would explain how Harry and Lord Voldemort have a conflict here in as much detail as I could. All right. Now, you would do this for whatever independent reading book you're doing, or if you're doing it for the book Chomp. Okay. In the left column, it's always important to remember you're writing down what kind of a conflict it is. So thinking about Freak the Mighty, I could do man versus self. So it would be man versus self in this first column. And here it would be Max versus his thoughts of being, his feelings of being stupid. And then in the right column, I would explain how throughout the entire book, Max is struggling with this idea that he's not smart, and then he's doesn't have a brain, and he feels like he's dumb. And you would put all that information here in this last column. Okay? And that's what you would do with this conflict evaluator sheet. Now, the last one is the mood and tone analyzer. This one might be the most challenging, but it's also very important because mood and tone are essential to really understanding a text. So again, at the top, you have your description of this role. And here on the bottom, what you would do is basically you would pick a tone. So you would go up here, what are some of the tone words? What is the tone of your reading? And you would put in the word here. So you might say the tone of the reading is disappointed. And then here, you would write your explanation or details from the text. Why was the tone disappointed? Okay. Once you've done tone here, then you would also do mood. Okay. What's the mood of the text? The mood was depressing. You might put depressing on this line. And then you would explain why you thought the mood was depressing. The third box, you could pick to do another one, tone or mood, because we know that tone and mood can change. Or one scene might have multiple moods. A mood could be scary and depressing at the same time. Okay, so this third box is where you could pick an additional tone or mood to analyze. Okay, and what I would ask with these jobs, okay, now that I've gone through all of these jobs and we've gone over the roles, what I would ask you to do now is to pick a book, all right? If you guys want to, certainly get the book Chomp. That would be awesome, but do not feel like you have to. Whatever book it is that you are reading at home, start by reading either 1 or 2 chapters, depending on how long those chapters are. And then select one of these jobs that we just went through and create a Kid Blog post. In your post heading, I would want you to include the title of your book, and then in your post, I would want you to let us know which job you are doing. All right? And then as we move on through additional chapters, what I would want you to do is try a variety of jobs. So maybe for the first 2 chapters, you try to do the summarizer. And then the next chapter, you try to do the character captain. And then in the next chapters, you move on and you try to analyze and use the vocabulary enricher. So you kind of mix it up. So you're not always just doing the same job. That would get boring if you were to do the same job over and over. Now that I've gone over all the jobs and how the lit circles work, I guess my challenge to you would be to first find the book that you're interested in reading. And then you guys can go ahead and get started on doing some of the readings and some of those jobs. And you'll want to balance it out. Just do a little bit each day. Do a little reading. You can get on a kid blog, post about your book. That way other people can get on and they can respond to the things that you guys are sharing. And I would like to remind you as well that you guys can go back. I'll be back tomorrow or the next day and give you guys another video lesson about the research and where you should be with that. Right now, if you're just still finding articles and beginning to read those, you're going to be in good shape. So I'll come back to you guys tomorrow and touch base to see how you're doing and to share where we should be with the research. So until then, if you guys have questions, get on to KidBlog, post your questions for me there. Go to roytrumbull.blogspot.com so you can see the lessons, so you can see all of the documents. Until tomorrow, guys, you guys have a good one. Bye. I'll see you tomorrow.